Joining me now with his reaction and analysis is Jason Lietaer, Conservative strategist and president of Enterprise Canada. Jason, good morning. Nice to see you. So,
nice to see you too.
Up until yesterday, the Liberals still thought they could pull off a win. Yet in the 11th hour, or more like 4 o'clock in the morning, the Conservatives took it. How impactful is this? What are your thoughts?
It's a catastrophe for the Liberals. I try not to get too much hyperbole into these things, but it's a catastrophe. This is like if Pierre Poilievre lost a seat in rural Alberta, for example, in a by-election. Seemingly impossible going into it when Carolyn Bennett announced her, sort of retirement from politics quite some time ago. Seemed like it would be, it's a safe Liberal seat. You just sort of pencil it in. You don't really think about it. The truth is the fact that Poilievre was able to win one of these seats, one of the safest Liberal seats in the country, it's an absolute embarrassment. It's a disgrace. If you're the Liberals, if you're Mr. Trudeau, you're starting to really look at your future and wonder whether or not you can lead the party into another election, because this is one of those things. It's impossible to overstate how catastrophic this loss is for them, their team, and their handpicked candidate there in the riding.
Well, I was going to ask you if perhaps this was an overstatement. A little over 10,000 people turned out to vote. Of course, turnout is always lower in by-elections. It's the start of the summer. The Oilers were playing. There's lots going on. And yet you still feel like this completely upset the apple cart.
It's really, really, really bad for the Liberals. So the Liberals lost about 10 to 12,000 votes, 10 or 11,000 votes, I think, from Carolyn Bennett's really strong results. She got about half the vote the last time in the riding. Well, the Conservatives had more votes in this by-election. So as you point out, turnout's really low in by-elections. And the other, but the Conservatives actually did better. And I'll just say this. The NDP was nowhere in this by-election, and when you talk about catastrophes, everybody's talking about the Liberals here this morning. But the NDP, who are the junior partner in Mr. Trudeau's coalition and are sort of rubber stamping all his decisions, they're the ones this morning who also have to be looking around and wondering, what are we doing here? Right? We're backing this guy. He's incredibly unpopular. God knows how long he's going to be. We're going to go into the next election tied to the Liberal Party, which is historically unpopular and is losing safe Liberal seats, and they can't even get a vote. The NDP got 10% of the vote last night, down from 15, by the way, 10% of the vote. Basically nobody voted for the NDP. And just for your viewers, the NDP holds that seat provincially. Like, it is an NDP seat provincially, and they got 10% of the vote. So Mr. Singh and Mr. Trudeau have a lot of thinking to do over the next little bit about how they're going to operate over the course of the summer and whether or not Mr. Trudeau is going to continue to operate.
Jason, I'm going to come back to that thought in just a second. In the meantime, I do want to play some sound from Chrystia Freeland, something she said yesterday. Let's listen to that. We'll come back on the other side. I'll get your reaction.
Because the alternative is really cold and cruel and small. The alternative is cuts and austerity, not believing in ourselves as a country, not believing in our communities.
All right, so you're shaking your head already. What do you think she was trying to say, and what message do you think she ultimately conveyed?
Well, I think it's a desperate group, right? And I think that's actually the message that she conveyed, is how desperate they are. And listen, if I was the Conservative campaign manager, I would be immediately printing out shirts that said cold, cruel, and small. I mean, I was laughing about this last night. I thought it was incredibly ineffective. And name calling, I mean, for goodness sakes, you're the finance minister, the deputy prime minister of the country, and this is what she can come up with. The problem is people aren't buying into that message anymore, right? Like, remember, if Mr. Trudeau steps down, she might be one of the odds-on favorites, her or Mark Carney or somebody like that, to take over. Like, this is the messenger that they've got saying stuff like this. And the truth is, people are buying into Poilievre's message. They might not like it, but Poilievre's got a pretty simple message, right? Get taxes down, fix the budget, stop crime, build some homes. He's got a pretty simple message, and they're not buying into Chrystia Freeland. And remember, she was the salesperson for the last couple of months. They did a capital gains increase, and they did this budget that was supposed to reset everything, and they were supposed to get 5% up every couple of months. And they were going to sort of take one last-ditch effort to try to win with Mr. Trudeau again. Ms. Freeland has been the chief spokesperson for that, and she's failed miserably. You saw that yesterday.
Okay, so getting back to the Prime Minister, I'm just going to say it plainly. You really think he'll step aside after one by-election? You really think that the results will give him that much of a pause that he would reconsider his future, Jason, as leader of the party?
I don't know what he'll do or what he won't do. I will say this: it's not just one by-election, right? He's been 20 points down for a year, and they've tried a lot of different things, right? They tried a bunch of stuff. They tried some home building stuff that hasn't really caught on. Nobody's really listening to him anymore. They took, as I said earlier, they took this budget. They spent a lot of money over the course of the last couple of months, putting Ms. Freeland and Mr. Trudeau out there, making announcements all over the country. They tried to start a class war, by saying we're going to tax the rich and spend the money somewhere else. None of it seems to be working. And so Mr. Trudeau, I think he's wise enough to know that after 8 or 9 years, people are probably a little bit tired of him. Thinks that he's the best one to take on Mr. Poilievre in a general election. That's one of the reasons why he's staying. Plus, he's tough, right? He's shown that he's a tough politician. He's been around. I don't know what he's going to do, but I'll just say this: if I were the Liberal leader and I lost St. Paul's in a by-election to a Conservative in this kind of fashion, you have to start looking at it. And I will just say one last thing on that. The Liberals, all of our phones are blowing up this morning. The people who are sort of looking for Mr. Trudeau to step down, they're not Conservatives like me. They are Liberals. A lot of Liberals went to the polls last night or stayed home to send Mr. Trudeau a message sort of saying, might be time for the walk in the snow, the sand, might be time for another surfing lesson, whatever you want to do, sir, might be time to take it. And so that message is coming from Liberals, not just from Conservatives. As Conservatives, I wouldn't mind running against Mr. Trudeau in the next campaign. But Liberals, a lot of Liberals are thinking it might be time for him to move on.
Jason Lietaer is a Conservative strategist, and he is president of Enterprise Canada. Jason, thanks so much for that.